just turn your pretty head and walk away. Places I've known, things that I'm growing, don't taste the same without you. I got myself in the worst mess I've been, and I find myself starving without you. Seems to me, dark all night, here comes the morning. Seems to me, you just want your drink to set free today. Seems to me, you don't want to talk about it. Seems to me, you just do your pretty head and walk away. I got to cool myself down, stomping around, thinking some words I can't name ya. Meet you halfway, I got nothing to say. Still, I don't suppose I can blame ya. Seems to me, you don't want to talk about it. Seems to me, you just turn your pretty head and walk away. Walk away. Cold late nights so long ago when I was not so strong, you know. Pretty man came to me, never seen eyes so blue. You know I could not run away, it seemed. We'd seen each other in a dream. Seemed like he knew me, he looked right through me. Yeah. Come on home, girl, he said with a smile. You don't have to love me yet, let's get high a while. But try to understand, try to understand. Try to understand. I'm a magic man. Winter nights we sang in tune, played inside the months of moon. Everything could never let this spell last forever.
Hey, Sean.
Sean,
yeah. I moved my mic to the other port on this Comrex. You want to retest the levels? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, you
The
sound
Scott
great.
Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 8 minutes.
8 minutes.
We're going to add those other two Trumps and Van Jones clip?
I doubt I have time for them, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think my interns put those in there, but I just...
Man, they don't let you have
The Scott
interns in
Jennings Show on
California.
the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 7 minutes and 30 seconds.
From a child, but try to understand.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 7 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 6 minutes and 30 seconds.
Send up one.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 6 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 minutes and 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 minutes.
Yo. How about that? All the way down. Now I could. What about that?
The Scott Jennings
You lost me. Right, cool, man, thanks.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 4 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to make a quick change out here. On that first Trump clip where Trump, that first 42-second clip, why don't we just shorten it up and make it where he says, I inherited a mess and I am fixing it?
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio
It'll be like
Network
5
will
seconds.
return from break in 2 minutes.
Okay, and we're also going to play the marijuana clip in
And
there.
then I think that'll give me time to do marijuana. So
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break. in 1
I inherited a
minute
mess
and
and
30
what?
seconds.
and I am fixing it.
Okay,
And it should I think it should just end it. I am fixing it.
okay.
And I'm going to add in, so here's what I'm going to do. So we'll play that very short snippet of Trump. Then we'll play
The Scott
Whoopi-
Jennings Show on the Salem Radio
Goldberg thing.
Network will
Then we'll
return
do-
in 1 minute.
Then we'll do marijuana.
Okay.
So it's Trump, very, very short.
The Scott
I'm
Jennings
fixing
Show
it.
on the Salem Radio
Then
Network
Whoopi.
will return from
Then
break
Trump.
in 45 seconds.
Marijuana, then CNN inflation.
11
That
months
ought to get
ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it.
Boom, right there.
Okay.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem
have
Radio
Alex yet?
Network will return from break
Yes.
in 30 seconds.
You have that? All right, boy, it's going to be a fast-moving show here.
The
boys.
Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio will return from break in 5 seconds.
He's not just a conservative voice at CNN. He's the last man standing, athwart the leftist mob, delivering the fiery truth, surrounded, outnumbered, still undefeated. Fighting for free speech, Western civilization, and delivering common sense for the American people. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Scott Jennings.
December the 18th, broadcasting live from my old Kentucky home today. The Revolution of Common Sense book tour has led me back home. We'll be signing books tonight here in Louisville, Kentucky. The Scott Jennings Show is sponsored by Ease Total Health. Health insurance is broken. Ease, E-A-S-E, fixes it with no deductibles, no red tape, and real benefits from day one. If you're not happy with your insurance product, and chances are you aren't, try these guys. easeforeveryone.com/Scott. easeforeveryone.com/Scott. Bottom of the hour today, Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma will be here to talk about what's facing congressional Republicans when they return from Christmas break. First, let's get to the news. And joining me for the news roundup today, my friend, the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, and my colleague here at Salem Radio, Alex Marlowe, is here. Alex, welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show.
Scott, it was a rare pleasure to get you to hear your end of your show prep, because in 2 occasions you said, then we're going to do marijuana. And I'm guessing that's about discussing marijuana and, you know, limiting some sort of the way we treat marijuana in our country, which I believe, you know, personally, marijuana is kind of a problem out here in California. It's not great. It's not going great, or legal marijuana out here.
Well,
But that was hilarious. I wish I got that drop for radio.
I know. I want to get to that in just a moment because the president just made an announcement about this in the Oval Office. So let's save that for a couple of minutes. I do want to tell the audience, we, Alex and Scott, broke a little news together yesterday. Beginning Monday, January 5th, you and I are going to occupy the historic 12-3 slot, Eastern slot on Salem Radio. You're going to take noon to 1. I'm going to expand this show and do 1 to 3, 2 hours every day. This has been one of the most historic slots in conservative news talk radio, from Rush Limbaugh to our friend Charlie. And so, Alex, I'm honored to be alongside you as we keep the tradition alive of conservatives in the middle of the day holding it down for our movement. And welcome aboard the Salem Radio Network.
Yeah, thank you, Scott, and congratulations to all your success. I know your show is a breakout hit this year, and I don't think people have all the details, but it's a very, very hot property, your show. It makes sense to have you anchor a couple hours, and I'm just really happy I get to precede you. It is such a storied slot. I'll tell you, it's 9 a.m. out where I'm at on the West Coast, and every 9 a.m., ever since I got out of high school, I would have that radio on, and I would hear the Hans Zimmer Gladiator soundtrack come up, and it was Dennis Prager's show. And then it became the Charlie Kirk show. I was a weekly guest on that show, so a American Icon held down that slot. And I'm very fortunate that I get to speak to the terrific Salem audience for an hour a day on radio, and I know you'll get the next hour.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we've got a huge year coming up with the midterms and everything President Trump and the administration are doing. So I look forward to doing that alongside you, and I'm sure we'll make cameos on each other's shows, and we'll do a lot of great work together in 2026. Let's do some news right now. Last night, the president spoke to the nation, and he had a simple message. Here's the commander-in-chief.
Good evening, America. 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it.
Alex, what grade did you give the president for his speech last night?
I'll give it an A-. I thought attitude-wise, I think it was not his most warm, and I think with the Christmas vibe, I would have liked to have seen a little more warmth. But I think overall, if you had read the speech, I think it was pretty great. I think he was doing a couple things effectively. People who had tuned in, and there's going to be a massive audience for such a thing, they're going to hear all of the accomplishments that he's had, which are stunning, and we spend very little time talking about that. We always tend to pick out the one thing, the one missing tile from the ceiling, and complain about that. It's important to hear all the good things. And he's also doing something important, which is he's framing up a lot of the problems that we still face as stuff he inherited, which is true. It's not just political whining. It's actually true. And he got that stuff accomplished, and the hero dividends, of course, is great. Everyone should love that, too. So overall, I thought it was a good one.
Yeah, let me focus in on the hero dividends. This is a bonus for American soldiers, $1,776, a widely praised idea. Even Van Jones, who was sitting next to me at CNN last night, thought it was good. But on The View today, Alex, they are big mad. Here's Whoopi Goldberg.
What he's doing is he's thinking, if I make sure that the soldiers have what they need, they'll back me in what I want. See?
Alex, Whoopi says Trump is bribing the soldiers with $1,776 to, I assume what she means is follow illegal orders. Is that how you took it?
Yeah, that's what she's saying, and it's great for her to say that because the retorts are pretty easy because that's all the Democrats do is they would go around and hand out money to various special interest groups and lobbying groups and various industries in the consulting class, and that's how we got the problems we got in this country. And so if Trump wants to give a little kickback to the military, no one's going to object to that at all. But of course, that's not what he's doing. These are the people who are here to keep us safe, and they're all underpaid, and we want to recruit the best. This is the main point here. We want to recruit the best, and if they feel like their commander-in-chief has their back, we're going to be a safer country. So this is a trap laid by Trump to get the idiots of the world like Whoopi to complain about it, and she's obliging to create content for our shows, and that's terrific.
Also, as we mentioned at the top of the show, President Trump today, and just a few minutes ago, making news in the Oval Office, reclassifying marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 drug. Let's listen to the president on this announcement.
Today, I'm pleased to announce that I will be signing an executive order to reschedule marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 controlled substance with legitimate medical uses. We have people begging for me to do this, people that are in great pain. For decades, this action has been requested by American patients suffering from extreme pain, incurable diseases, aggressive cancers, seizure disorders, neurological problems, and more, including numerous veterans with service-related injuries and older Americans who live with chronic medical problems that severely degrade their quality of life. And it's so really, I can't tell you, I think I probably have received more phone calls on this, on doing what we're doing. I don't think I received any calls on the other side of it, but hopefully this reclassification, which by the way polls at 82%, will help many of those patients live a far better life.
Trump, the popularist here, going to the polls. He says 80% of Americans agree. He did get a few calls on the other side of it. There are at least 24 Republican lawmakers, including Pete Sessions of Texas and House Freedom Caucus Chairman Andy Harris of Maryland, who encouraged the president not to do this. Alex, how'd this news hit you today?
Yeah, I was happy to see that he's not classifying it as a recreational drug. He's not sanctioning it as a recreational drug, which is good. We've had this experiment. California's been the guinea pig where I live, where they've basically went from it was controlled, but you could get it if you really wanted it, and that was kind of going okay. And then it became legal, and now there's all of these people just bumping along the sidewalk, and they smells like pot, and everywhere you go smells like pot. You can't take your family places. It's been horrible. I think it's really cut a lot of people's spirit out. If we're talking about it from a medical perspective, so that maybe there are alternatives to the giant pharmaceutical companies that repulse everyone, I can live with that, but I don't love the inching towards normalization and legalization of marijuana, because I just don't think it's very good for the human spirit. But technically, the way he's describing it, Scott, I haven't had the chance to parse it too much. It sounds okay. What was your take?
Well, I'm a little worried about this one. I think the president was elected in part because people want national renewal, and I think marijuana and the legalization of it has been the opposite of that, to be honest. And I don't like the message that it sends to children and others that, hey, this is okay. I do want to parse it myself because it is breaking news, and I'm in agreement with you that if it were recreational, that would be a definite step in the wrong direction. Let's pick it up on the other side. Alex Marlowe is my guest. I want to talk to you about Relief Factor before we go to break. Relief Factor, I'm just going to give you my personal experience. I've been using Relief Factor since I started with this radio show in the summer because they've been a great sponsor. And they said, we want you to use it because we want you to give your authentic views on the air about it. And I said, I'll do it. I've had a great experience with it. You know, I got a little knee issue. My right knee has always bothered me a little. I had some knee surgery a while back. I fly on airplanes. My back bothers me a little bit from it because not all these seats are great. I hate to tell you. But Relief Factor, I'm just saying, joints, little aches and pains, seems to be better. My dad started using it. And, you know, he's no spring chicken, as you know. But he feels great. He's been a religious user of it. Even my mom is doing it now because she noticed the change in my dad. So Jennings household experience, pretty good. Here's what you do. Try the 3-week quick start. It's $19.95. Go to relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF. I think you might like it. It's a good thing to try. It's a drug-free supplement. I think it could make your life better. When we come back, more with Alex Marlowe. It's Scott Jennings here on the Salem Radio Network.
The fastest growing show on syndicated radio. Welcome aboard. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
Why you always keep with your mother's bed?
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes.
Tell me, did the other children's going on you? If I come on like a dream, ooh, will you let me show you what I mean?
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
All I want is a remedy for all of the things that we need. I could only take a to please
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 1 minute and 30 seconds.
I need a remedy, yeah. For what is enemy, you see? I need a remedy for what is ailing me. I need a remedy, yeah, for what's ailing me. If I only had a remedy.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return in 1 minute. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 45 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
Ready for some common sense and a little Kentucky windage? Here's Scott Jennings.
And we're bringing you that windage from the Commonwealth of Kentucky today on Thursday, December the 18th. It's Scott Jennings, Common Sense for the American People. My special guest today, Alex Marlow, the editor-in-chief of Breitbart, and soon to be in the new year, the host of the noon to 1 hour Eastern here on the Salem Radio Network. Alex, we were discussing before the break news surrounding the president. I want to change our attention to news surrounding the Democrats. Everybody wants to talk about Donald Trump's poll numbers all the time, but the Democrats are in trouble. The Quinnipiac poll yesterday had them at an 18% approval rating. Alex, they are down to friends, family, illegals, and health insurance executives. Let's listen to Harry Enton describe this abysmal Democratic polling on CNN.
Right now. Yeah, I mean, Democrats in the minds of the American public are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, you said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this. Negative 61 points. That means that their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are.
Alex, why are the Democrats suffering so? If all this relentless negative coverage of Trump out there is working, why aren't the Democrats benefiting from this, Alex?
Well, it's because there's not enough criminals and there's not enough transgenders in the country to get them enough votes they need, because those are the only two groups that they seem to be directing policy towards. And the word is getting out. Americans know that any affordability issues, any of the pain they're feeling is largely due to Democrat policies. They created the open border crisis. They created the Biden fling, and they're not going to be able to run from that. They're going to have to put forward a agenda that actually will appeal to the American public and not just complain about things. But instead, they're all running for president as fast as possible, it seems like, and it's clearly not working for them.
You know, there's another poll number that I saw pop up here today. It had to do with J.D. Vance, the Emerson poll. They've got J.D. Vance in positive territory, 46% fave versus 41% unfave. He was +5 and far more popular in their survey than California Governor Gavin Newsom. And Vance, I think, led Newsom on a head-to-head. What do you make of that? Why is Vance resonating out there? Just fave, unfave, he's one of the more popular politicians in the country.
Yeah, one of the things about Vance, who I've gotten to know for a long time, we were friends even before he ran for Senate in Ohio, the more you get to know him, the more you're impressed by him, because he's incredibly smart, incredibly thoughtful, and very appealing. The weird attack on him by Tim Walsh was all based on the fact that Vance is actually quite a normal guy. He's just a guy who's a wild overachiever, very ambitious, but he's very likable. Gavin Newsom, who I've followed since I was a teenager out here in California, he gets less likable the more you get to know him and seems less authentic.
Yeah, one of the more likable Democrats in the survey that Emerson released was Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. He was 6 points above water. But most of these people are in rough shape here. Newsom was -11, AOC -12, Zoran Mamdani -16. I'll tell you who was in really rough shape, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's now at -33 underwater on her personal image. Has Marjorie Taylor Greene's days as a prominent politician in the United States, have they come to an end, Alex? Has she destroyed herself in her crusade against Donald Trump?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, quick note on Shapiro. He can't even be on the ticket probably for the Democrats because he's Jewish and they have such a wild anti-Semitic base that they're going to have to contend with in a primary. But with Marjorie Taylor Greene, she just lit herself on fire, timing that retirement to slim our majority in the Congress, rights for when she gets her pension. It was such a horrific move for her brand and her politically. I'm not a huge fan of hers, but I would have never counseled anyone to do something like that. It was egregious and people knew it.
Yeah, she look, you go back to what happened. She wanted to run statewide in Georgia. The Trump political operations showed her a poll, and it was going to be a disaster. And ever since that moment, she has been an ardent opponent of the president's policies, whether it's been on immigration or how he's handled foreign affairs, you name it. And she's just become a complete opposite of whatever Trump wants to do. And in the Republican Party, that's not going to get you very far. Alex Marlow, thank you for joining us today. You are the editor-in-chief of Breitbart, and beginning on January the 5th, noon Eastern, every single day, noon to 1, we're going to get the Alex Marlow radio show. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do with it. I look forward to being adjacent to you on the radio clock here. And together, my friend, we will keep the noon to 3 slot and conservative news talk radio going strong. There's a long history of this, and I think people are going to love it. Thanks for being with me today, Alex.
Thank you, Scott. I know you'll be on my podcast next week. We just booked that, so we'll be talking about the book. Can't wait for that.
All right. That's Alex Marlow from Salem and Breitbart. Coming up, James Lankford, senator from Oklahoma, is here. We'll talk about what's happening in Washington. It's Common Sense here on the Salem Radio Network.
I wanna know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 minutes.
Run down. I've been lied to. And I don't know why I let that mean woman make me a fool. She took all my money.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Now she's with one of my good time buddies. They're drinking in some crosstown bar. Sometimes I feel like I've been blind.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 4 minutes.
I feel like I'm dying.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
My friends tell me that I've been such a fool.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes.
Oh, for loving you. Drown myself in sorrow as I look at what you've done. But nothing seems to change. The bad times stay the same, and I can't run. Sometimes I feel. Sometimes I
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Good Lord, I feel like I'm dying.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 1 minute and 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return in 1 minute.
Sometimes I feel. Sometimes I feel.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 45 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
He's the author of the best-selling book, A Revolution of Common Sense. Here's Scott Jennings.
Coming up in just a moment, our special conversation today. U.S. Senator James Lankford of the great state of Oklahoma. He'll be with us in just a moment to react to the news of the day. But first, it is 7 days until Christmas, and I just want to give you all a little update on the Angel Tree campaign. Thanks to this audience and all of your generosity, we've blessed hundreds of kids who, through no fault of their own, won't be with mom or dad on Christmas because they've got one or both parents in prison. But you all have stepped up. Hundreds of children through the Angel Tree program are going to get a gift. They're going to get a letter from mom or dad, and they're going to get a Bible. $30. That's what that does for them. And you all are doing it. You're answering the call. I made a donation at the beginning of the campaign, and I'm going to do another one today. And I want you to hear from someone. This is Renee. She was a parent. She missed out on being with her own daughter because she was in prison. Let's hear from Renee.
While I was there in prison, I had to spend 3 years apart from my child for my sentence. And during that time, of course, she began to grow, and Christmas time came along. I signed up for Angel Tree. And once she was able to start receiving gifts, Angel Tree would show up like I was right there with her for Christmas, and it kept us connected. So that was how I got started with Angel Tree.
It's hard for me to imagine any better way to celebrate the Christmas season and engage in some Christmas spirit than by helping a child who, at a time of year when most children are happy and excited and looking forward to something, probably live in a state of anxiety because their parents are not with them because they're in prison, and their life, frankly, is a little bit in flux. But you can make it better. All you got to do is call this number, 888-206-2793, 888-206-293. You can also go to scottjenningsshow.com, click on the Angel Tree banner, and make a contribution. 7 days until Christmas. You can help these kids. $30 helps one. $150 helps five. I'd be honored if you join me. I made one early. I'm going to do one today as well. On the line with us, Senator James Lankford from the great state of Oklahoma is here. He's on the Finance, Homeland Security, and Intelligence Committees, one of the most influential figures in the national security space in Washington. Senator Lankford, welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
Hey, glad to visit with you, Scott.
Yep, I want to get a little reaction to you from some breaking news today. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz made an announcement that they are going to bar hospitals from performing sex-rejecting procedures on children. Let's hear from Dr. Oz, and I'll get your reaction.
It's the first. We're announcing a notice of proposed rulemaking that ends taxpayer funding of sex-rejecting procedures for children in Medicaid and CHIP, full stop.
Senator Lankford, your reaction to today's announcement.
Yeah, I was actually on the front row when that announcement was made, and my reaction was to just cheer and clap because it's about time that the United States, as crazy as this sounds, catches up with Europe. Europe has studied this issue for years about are we going to allow sex change operations on minors, and they determined no, that it's terrible for just the physical growth of the individual. It's unknown what happens to them, bone density, heart issues, blood issues. As crazy as it sounds, some people that are 12 years old change their mind when they're 20 years old. And so to be able to permanently make a change in a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid without knowing all the medical consequences for that in the future and saying when they're 20 and 25-year-old, you can't change your mind again is absolutely awful. I can't believe we ever did that to kids. And the first thing that came out today is this overwhelming sense that there will be a day that America will look back on this dark part of history when we had sex change operations on children, and we as a nation will be hopefully horrified what was allowed to occur. But thankfully, it ends today.
Yeah, some moral clarity and some common sense from the Trump administration. And this was a huge issue in the 24 campaign. I mean, there was a clear, bright line between Trump and Harris and the Democrats on this. And it was always inconceivable to me why they wanted to die on that hill. I mean, sometimes I called it an 80-20 issue, but it's like a 95-5 issue. And yet you still have Democrats out there who are all in on this transgender ideology cult. And not only is it terrible in the ways you described it, but you see people out here who fall into this lifestyle and they wind up with a lot of terrible life outcomes. So good for the Trump administration today on that. Let's stay with healthcare. Obviously, you all in Congress are dealing with this Obamacare subsidy issue, and it looks like Congress is going to go home without having done anything on that. You had competing proposals in the Senate, one from the Republicans, one from the Democrats, that both failed on the Senate floor. Last night, the House Republicans voted on a healthcare bill that they were able to pass. I doubt that will have the votes in the Senate. Where do we go from here on the issue of health care, and what's going to happen on the Obamacare subsidy issue?
Yeah, it's unknown where this goes in the future. Democrats put up a proposal to say, hey, we just want to continue to give subsidies. Republicans said, hey, we don't want to fund, not only fund abortions, which is what the Democrat proposal was doing, using taxpayer dollars to be able to subsidize abortions, But there's also a tremendous amount of fraud, and it's uncapped. Literally, you could make $500,000 a year and still get subsidies from your taxpayers. So you've got somebody that's making $70,000 a year paying their own insurance and also helping pay for their neighbor across town that makes $500,000 in the Obamacare subsidies because of the way the Democrats shaped it. Democrats want to keep that going. We've said absolutely not. Now it's a matter of saying, how can we actually find a common ground area that deals with a fairly small group of people in a nation of 340 million people, let's say, where you've got about 2 million people that this really does affect in a very severe way, where they are in the Obamacare marketplace, they're above 400% of poverty, and their rates are going from, let's say, $60 or $70 to $2,000 a month. And they're saying, hey, I'm just not prepared for that. We're trying to figure out how to be able to give them some greater flexibility. We'd like to, just as conservatives, give them some options. Obamacare took options away from them where they couldn't choose anything other than Obamacare. We'd like to give them some options where they actually can choose other alternatives that are cheaper.
Do you like the idea floated out by Senator Cassidy and talked about by the president of health savings accounts, where if we're going to spend money, we just give it directly to the patients and pass the insurance companies?
That is so much better, but you still want to be able to have a targeted number of people on it. Democrats are always looking for who else they can subsidize on it. I don't want to get into that game where we're finding how many people we can subsidize. When again, you've got somebody right down the street that's paying their own bill makes exactly the same amount of money. The best thing that we can do is to be able to give people and individuals control over their own healthcare decisions rather than having some system that's centralized that the government that actually controls. That's something Bill Cassidy's been very strong on. That's something I'm very consistent on. Let's give people the ability to be able to choose their healthcare coverage and their healthcare decisions. That's what the Cassidy proposal does, both with health savings accounts and what's called cost sharing reductions, another whole thing. But it's really focused in on giving people the power over their healthcare.
Let's move on to foreign affairs. The issue of Venezuela still hanging out there. The president has ordered a blockade around Venezuela. We're obviously sinking these narco-terror boats, both around Venezuela and now in the Eastern Pacific. Let me start here. You have received classified briefings from Secretary Rubio and Secretary Hegseth. You know what they know now, and I know there are things you can't tell us because of the classified nature of it. Just for the record, are you satisfied with the level of transparency and the level of knowledge that you're getting from the administration about our military activities in and around Venezuela?
I am, actually. And let me tell you a couple of reasons why. They're using the exact same process for choosing targets that President Obama did, that President Trump did during his first term, that President Biden did when we're dealing with terrorists in the Middle East. For some reason, if you're planning to attack the United States and kill Americans and you're an Islamic terrorist on it, then they want to have one focus, and it's a completely different thing if you want to be able to bring drugs that are going to kill 100,000 Americans when they get to the United States. Both of them have been declared designated terrorist organizations. It's the same process. They go through the same legal. And the left-wing media wants to make this sound like this is just a cowboy operation where they're deciding who they're going to shoot randomly on it that's out in the Pacific or in the Caribbean. There are literally attorneys at every single decision point in it, determining what is the legal standard here, what have we achieved, and they're checking the boxes on all the criteria through it. So, no, there's a lot that goes into this, into making every decision. It's a serious decision when you take action to take a human life, regardless of who they are, whether they're a drug trafficker or anyone else on death row. But it's a serious decision. They're doing the process that needs to be done to do it right.
Do you believe that it is our policy here in the United States to enforce regime change in Venezuela? Do you think the current activities will be enough to bring it about? And if it takes something more, if it takes a little more military action, is that something the Trump administration is going to have to come back to Congress and talk to you all about that first?
Well, right now they're trying to figure out how the Venezuelan people can live free on it. I just remind you, as you know extremely well, and all of your great listeners, that our government has not recognized Maduro as the legitimate leader. Neither did the Biden administration recognize Maduro as the legitimate leader. He is propped up by doing illegal oil sales and drug sales, and he has oppressed his people, and he has literally pushed people out that disagree with him, either killed them or pushed them out of the country. so that he can continue to be able to dominate that place. That is destabilizing for our entire hemisphere when you got a country as big as Venezuela, then basically causing all this chaos that's right there. So right now, literally the president is enforcing what the Biden administration was afraid to do. The Biden administration declared that oil tanker that the president seized as being illegal in transferring oil illegally. They were an oil tanker that was under a different flag, not legally, had already been sanctioned. President Trump didn't ignore it. He just imposed it. The oil embargo is not on every ship leaving Venezuela. It's on sanctioned vessels that are leaving Venezuela. So literally every one of those boats has already been sanctioned by the United States. We're just enforcing what our law is. And so, yes, President's putting pressure on Maduro in a way that Biden was afraid to do it. Biden would say that he's an illegitimate government and he's got all this illegal activity, but would never do anything about it. Trump's not ignoring the problem.
Yeah, it seems to me that having a friendlier government in Venezuela that's democratically elected, that's aligned with the United States instead of the current operation, which is aligned with Iran, Russia, and China, would be better for things in the Western Hemisphere. And the president did, of course, promise to police and improve the Western Hemisphere. So I think he's got popular support on this. That voice you're hearing is Senator James Lankford of the great state of Oklahoma. We're going to hold him over through the break. When we come back, we're going to talk about energy, and we're also going to talk about anti-Semitism and get his thoughts on some of the recent news on that front. First, a word from our friends at the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. It's winter in Ukraine. It comes early. And for elderly Jews who live there, like Olga, who is 79, it can be deadly. She's in a small village there. There is no indoor plumbing, no bathroom, no reliable access to heating. Every day, she pumps water from a well. She goes out into sub-zero temperatures. To go to the bathroom, she walks through the bitter cold to get to an outhouse. She has a meager pension. It does not cover food, medicine, and heat sufficient to keep her alive. Poverty threatens to consume and end her life. However, when all seems lost, Olga and people like Olga can get a nourishing food box, emergency lighting, and a warm blanket. This life-saving aid comes from the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. There are thousands like Olga in Ukraine and across the former Soviet Union. If you'd like to learn more and help them face down this terrible winter, I encourage you to go to urgentifcj.org, urgentifcj.org. You can make a big difference for Olga and other elderly Jews spread across the former Soviet republics. More with James Lankford of Oklahoma when we come back. It's Scott Jennings on the Salem Radio Network.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes. Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 1 minute and 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return in 1 minute. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 45 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
News, comment, and the stories and facts the mainstream media refuses to discuss. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
And it is Thursday, December the 18th. Common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings is here. Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma is our special guest. Senator, a little bit of a lightning round here. We've got about 5 minutes left in the show. I want to ask you about an issue called debanking. I know you hear about this from some constituents. We've got a great sponsor of the show, Americans for Free Markets, and they are very interested in what the president did with his executive order to stop this debanking and these regulators putting pressure on financial institutions. Is Congress considering codifying that executive order and maybe putting in U.S. law critical reforms here that would give us more fair and transparent access to financial services?
Absolutely. That is in consideration. The chairman of the banking committee is actually Senator Tim Scott from the great state of South Carolina. And he is absolutely looking at that, trying to be able to figure out how we can actually get the 60 votes we need in the Senate and get that codified in the law. There should not be discrimination against entities and organizations based on how they can bank, based on their political views.
You can go to forfreemarkets.org if you want to learn more about this, forfreemarkets.org to learn about the issue of debanking. Your quick reaction to the president's reclassification of marijuana today, Senator, from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3.
Yeah, I agree with the president on a lot of things. He and I disagree on that one. I happen to live in the great state of Oklahoma, which we actually passed medical marijuana in our state less than 10 years ago, and I've seen the effects of it. The youth use of marijuana in our state has skyrocketed. The health effects are still not determined. There's a lot of conversation about CBD. CBD is the part of the plant that doesn't make you high. The THC does, and so my concern is they're saying they need more and more access to the CBD. There's no problem with the CBD portion of that plant, but I think people are actually trying to get access to the THC portion of it that does cause the high. I just don't see how inhaled marijuana smoke and marijuana gummy bears and all those things, it doesn't make our families stronger. It doesn't make our streets safer. It doesn't make our businesses more efficient. And as far as the medical research side, there's a lot of conversation about we want to do more medical research. Actually, in 2022, Congress already passed an opening of doing more medical research on marijuana. It's a plant, so we should do medical research. We already opened that up, but this doesn't just open that up for that. This is a huge tax windfall for every marijuana business, and I'm afraid sends the wrong message to teenagers around the country that the president is in favor of smoking marijuana, which I know for a fact he is not.
Let's talk energy, Senator. We have gas prices at a 4-year low. In some places, they're getting down to $2, even a little under that in a few gas stations out there. How's the energy business going in Oklahoma?
It's going very well. Let me just tell everybody to move to Oklahoma because I paid $1.97 last weekend when I was back home in Oklahoma City for gasoline. So, yeah, we're under $2 in Oklahoma for gasoline. It is a it is a huge win for the consumer. It's one of the things the president's been very focused on, is if you're going to bring down prices, the first way to do that is to try to get down the cost of energy and of moving everything. Everything is based on the price of diesel and gasoline in the entire country. So it's a win for the consumer.
Let's talk about anti-Semitism, Senator. We saw the terrible attack in Australia at Bondi Beach. We've suffered a number of attacks in the United States on people outside the Israeli embassy, college campuses, those folks over in Colorado who were burned alive in the United States of America. Are we doing enough to stop anti-Semitism? And what's your reaction to the sort of unfolding debate over these issues inside the conservative movement?
Yeah, it's amazing to me that we're having a debate inside the conservative movement about anti-Semitism. This is something dealt with on the left. And for those folks that are in the quote-unquote new right, they're really quoting an old wrong here. And these anti-Semitic tropes that are out there, it's the Jews' fault or whatever it may be, or you're just Israel lovers or the brain virus or all kinds of things. It's bizarre to me to be able to hear those kind of conversations coming from the right. We've been very outspoken in the conservative movement to say, hey, we believe in the rights of every individual to have equal opportunity and to have equal ability to be able to rise, and we're not pushing people down. And we certainly haven't had an anti-Semitic line that's been run through the conservative movement. So, no, I'm speaking out pretty clearly. Strangely enough, I just got off the floor of the Senate about 2 hours ago, was talking through some of the things that have happened this year and mentioned exactly this issue about anti-Semitism, both on the left and the right that's rising on it. I have to tell you, I stand very strong with my friends in Israel and Jewish friends that are here in the United States in protecting their right to live their faith, have their heritage, and to make sure that we as a country protect that. That goes all the way back to George Washington. Yeah. This is not. This is who we are as Americans, that we protect the rights of Jews to be able to live their faith and practice it.
Well said. Senator James Lankford has been our guest today from Oklahoma. We're wrapping up the show today. Back in the Big Apple tomorrow. It's common sense for the American people. Thanks for listening. I'm Scott Jennings on the Salem Radio Network.
Portions of the Scott Jennings Show are sponsored in part by Americans for Prosperity.
Yeah, we all the same 'cause we thinking the same thing.